All right, issue 16.
Frontline. They're stalking behind comic scenes, behind the comic scenes. Mark, J, and Tim. It's the spin-off that has survived. There's no yawning to find the meaning. Is it good? Is it shite? G.I. Joe, Frontline on Talking Joe. Well, G.I. Joe, Frontline on Talking Joe. G.I. Joe, Frontline on Talking Joe. Well, G.I. Joe, Frontline on Talking Joe.
So 16 is called Security, the creative team. Story, Wilson and Cory Mitchel, with Brandon Jerwa on script polishing. Pencils, Eddy Barrows, again, same artist as History Repeating. Lynx Studios covers the inks, no named inker. Also colours, Lynx Studios. Letters, Dreamer Design, and graphic design, Mike Norton.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery.
We've got two covers here. We've got cover A, artist John Rauch, colours by Andrew Pepoy, and that's got 3 Night Vipers holding Destro's helmet, dodoing towards Cobra Commander. Cover B is a double cover, front and back. Lynx Studios, Clint, Hilinski and Andrew Pepoy. It's got a Night Viper on the front with Days of Future Past style posters of Destro crossed out, and on the back cover we've got mostly low light and Snake Eyes with Cobra Commander in the background. What do you think of these covers? Jay, why don't you start?
I am not a fan. Yeah, I don't know. The first one, I'm looking at it while you're talking. I kind of like the musculature and the lighting on the main Night Creeper. The flames, you kind of have to think about. I think about, well, maybe, it's like, why am I seeing like sporadic flames? Well, maybe those are from like torches or something like that. Well, if they are, we should see the torches. Again, we've got a Destro mask with the huge John Cena jawline. I'm not a fan of. I don't know. It's okay. Again, would it make me buy the cover? Not necessarily. That a lot of that is content, which we'll get into when we get to the story.
Yeah, I like it when people play with trying to create
reflections,
like reflections
it's
in
hard.
Destro's mask. It's definitely hard for sure, and I think they do relatively well with the reflection of Cobra Commander there. Echoing Tim, we've got a question being asked,
Yeah.
What's going on here? Why have these Night Creepers got Destro's mask and presenting it to Cobra Commander? The cover B is a little bit more sort of generic, doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of storytelling sense. It's just like, let's stick some characters here, there, everywhere. Look, if you sort of concentrate on, the more you concentrate on it, the less it makes sense. Why are there all of these posters behind the Night Creeper with Destro's face being crossed out on each one?
Yeah, they didn't kill Destro 5 times.
Why is Low Light stood in front of him? Why is Snake Eyes sort of phasing through a wall? Why is Cobra Commander's head immediately behind Snake Eyes and in front of this wall? What is Zartan doing in that smoke, sort of prodding Snake Eyes in the leg with a gun? It's
a failed movie poster.
So cover B is supposed to be a montage, but it is ineptly done. And so it reads, you have to like think about it. Like, oh, that's a montage. These characters aren't actually like sharing a space. It's like Jay just said. It's like movie poster, like heads and torsos sort of overlapping. Some are big, some are small. Some people do that well, some people don't. And the team here is not talented enough to pull this off. Cover A, at first glance, I like it because the Night Creepers are so cool and fun, from the toy and then how they were used briefly in the Marvel run around, issue 97. But the problem here is that there's sort of like 2 colors on this entire cover. There's the sort of like pink blue of Cobra Commander, and then there's the like murky orange, magenta, brown of everything else. And that might actually be sort of the color that the gray, purple, magenta, silver Night Creepers costumes appear to the human eye if lit from behind by torches. But the color in the background, both the color and the value, by value I mean brightness, right? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being brightest, 10 being darkest, right? Like think of white to black. The color and the value of the background is too similar to a lot of the colors in the Night Creepers. And so there's a boldness in the actual drawing and the inking, which helps, but the coloring here is kind of mush. And I find this kind of Destro helmet confusing and disconcerting, and it's no one artist's, problem or responsibility. Like in the animated series, as within Rise of Cobra, sort of magically Destro's mask like moves perfectly with his face, as if it's just like silver paint on a man's face. You look at some of the early issues of the comic, and you look at the Hector Garrido painting for the original action figure and the original action figure, and you get the sense that it really is a mask that doesn't move. Like it doesn't have a furrowed brow and cheekbones that come up and down, and like you just see lips moving up and down behind a little slit for the mouth. So I understand that like no one's ever landed on this like definitively, and every version treats it differently. But when you have these like crazy sort of Steve Kurth style cheekbones from Reinstated, the first 4 issues by Devil's Due, but then it's like it's not going to be a mask. Like holding Cobra Commander's hood, it would sort of hang. Like that's not what a Destro helmet should do. But like, is this the front half of the helmet and there's also a back half? I just find this sort of confusing.
It shouldn't have the collar. I think if it didn't have the collar, it'd make more sense.
Yeah. There you go. Because the collar would be for like keeping it in place, or like bolting it to the shirt,
that didn't
the
work.
jacket or something. And then one other problem, and this is a Devil's Due problem in general. This is like Blaylock and his like art direction for his whole take on the property. The original Night Creepers, think of the action figure, super flamboyant, right? Like it feels very in keeping with Cobra, where you have like costumes with like shoulder pads and capes and open chests, right? Like Destro and Mindbender, right? Like those colors for the original Night Creeper, kind of silly, right? Like the understated Storm Shadow, the understated like aqua recolor of Storm Shadow for the Ninja Viper. Okay, by the time you get to the Night Creeper, it's like, well, there's like gray and purple and magenta and silver, and like there's a lot going on. At the same time, that costume is remarkably simple and streamlined and elegant. And look at the crap on the sides of the visors for these Night Creepers. Like,
yeah, I noticed that.
No one needed to add little edges and bits, and like it looks like sort of fingers. It's like, no, don't do that. Like don't do that. It's like the difference between, I don't know, Transformers in 1990 and like the Michael Bay live action Transformers. Like too much. And then we have the return of the like, was it 2003 era logo type for G.I. Joe with the red outlines and then the stripes that become the stars, which didn't we see that only on was it the first issue of Frontline and then it dropped out?
I think it was on the first 4.
Yeah, first 5, I think, actually. I think it had the first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I actually think, and I might have said this when we reviewed the first 4 issues of Frontline, I think having this different logo could be helpful for Frontline, because with the word Frontline at the bottom of every cover, you might grab then or now, in a back issue bin now, you might grab an issue of Frontline and think you're getting the main Devil's Due series.
Yeah, I wonder whether they chose it just because it's slightly smaller than the other logo that was used. So it meant that then they're not chopping into the Night Creepers, the top of their head.
Wouldn't you then just shrink the regular logo?
You might,
just make it a little smaller.
But in terms of a logic, maybe that's the logic.
Okay.
I don't know. But just trying to find some reason they would do it.
That's actually not a bad All right, I'm done complaining about the covers. Now I can complain about the.
I was going to point out as well the other thing about the cover B that sort of doesn't necessarily bode well for it is that, you know, with the Destro posters in the background, it sort of compares a little bit to issue 116 of the original G.I. Joe run, which was a Destro Must Die, and a great cover by Michael Golden. So, you know, always difficult to hold up something to such a strong comparator. So, it's not going to compare well. But okay, let's leave the covers to one side. What happens on the inside of these, Jay?
In London, England, a masked intruder invades a Parliament security house and assassinates a high-ranking member of Parliament. At the same time, on an island in the English Channel, Destro and Cobra Commander are arguing about the security of Destro's stronghold. Destro tells the commander that he is as safe there as Destro wishes him to be. Suddenly, Zartan drops from the ceiling and puts a gun to Destro's head. He pulls the trigger on the empty gun, demonstrating that he could have killed Destro had he wished to. Destro tells Zartan his security forces alerted him to his presence 20 minutes before, and that Zartan was there because Destro allowed him to be there. The next day, Duke, Stalker, Snake Eyes, and Lowlight investigate the assassination. Duke tells Stalker the victim was a former member of the Crimson Guard. Snake Eyes discovers a poisoned dart behind the victim's ear. In Paris, the Night Creeper receives a dossier on his next target, Destro. Cobra Commander tells Destro he has hired the Night Creeper to kill him. Destro is indignant, and rightly so. The Baroness pulls a gun on Cobra Commander and is met with a throwing star to the hand by Storm Shadow. "Don't you understand?" the commander asks Destro. "This is all part of a test. If you're so confident the facility's secure, then you have nothing to worry about. I just thought it might be good sport to warn you." Back at Joe HQ, Lifeline and Mainframe have identified the poison from the dart with a toxin found in the glands of a rare frog. After some digging, Mainframe links a man named Josef Ulrich with the purchase of the frogs. Ulrich has purchased the frogs 7 times in 3 years. The latest delivery was sent to Paris. Stalker volunteers himself and Snake Eyes to go to Paris and pick up Ulrich. Later, as the Joes prepare to bust into Ulrich's hotel room, the Night Creeper makes his way closer to Destro. Snake Eyes and Stalker kick open Ulrich's hotel room door. Stalker sees the room is rigged with explosives and barely manages to save Snake Eyes from the blast. Storm Shadow happens upon 2 dead Cobra officers and finds a poisoned dart behind one of their ears. Stalker and Snake Eyes learn the Night Creeper's latest target is Destro. Storm Shadow tells Cobra Commander Ulrich is in the base and asks if he wishes to go to the bunker. Commander tells Storm Shadow there's no danger for them there. Destro tells the commander he is naive, but is then told by his men that the base's security nets have been compromised. Behind him, a Cobra officer loads a bolt into a crossbow and aims it at Destro. Suddenly, a second Destro appears, pointing a gun at the disguised Night Creeper. First, Destro removes his mask to reveal Zartan beneath, and Destro fires at the Night Creeper. The Night Creeper disappears in a cloud of smoke, only to reappear moments later with his sword in Destro's face. Shots ring out and the Night Creeper falls. The Baroness stands in the doorway, smoking gun held high. Destro takes the gun from her and kills Ulrich. He then turns to Cobra Commander. Just then the base is rocked by a huge explosion. The Joes have arrived. The Cobras escape and the Joes identify the dead Night Creeper as Ulrich. The Baroness asks Destro about the commander's contract with the Night Creepers. Destro tells her though the Night Creepers are worthy assassins, their greed is their folly. I simply made them a better offer, he says. And in Zurich, Switzerland, another Night Creeper receives a dossier bearing Destro's seal. The end.
I want to point out that wonderful summary, just written and recited by Jay, is for 122-page comic. And if you think I'm about to say, man, so much got crammed into just 22 pages, what I'm actually going to say is either this comic is a noble failure or this comic is a failure. I thought this was a bad issue and I couldn't follow it. There's too many characters, too much confusing cross-cutting between scenes.
Yes.
I mean, Brandon Jerwa told us when we interviewed him recently on this show that he was brought in to do some work on this issue. And I can't tell if he was like saving some people from a sinking ship or if he like showed up and the ship had already sunk. And he's like, well, I have to report that the ship has sunk. I think this comic is a fascinating example of a story that gets away from the writer or an editor who's not like having enough back and forth like revisions with a writer, or in this case, 2 writers. I think this issue is a perfect example of the kind of comic that you just say, like, you know what, this isn't fully baked. We need to like take this off the schedule and like rework half of it or start over. But like, we are not going to publish this comic, and we'll like pay the fee for missing our like print window with the printer, and we'll like pay our fee to Hasbro and like not making any money off this issue. I also think, and then I'm going to hand this mic off to you guys. I'm sorry for starting us off on negative, but I find this issue like fascinating. I think this comic is a really good example of what people who don't know what G.I. Joe is think G.I. Joe is, which is like a lot of just all these characters, and like if they've like read Larry Hama stories or like have heard about them, it's like, oh, I guess it's like a lot of like machinations, and there's even like the final page is even like a very like Larry Hama ending, and it does resemble a Larry Hama Destro story that we have read recently. I think these ingredients would work with another pass or a different creative team behind it.
Absolutely. So the writers being Wilson and Cory Mitchel, very difficult to find much about them online. Various sources spell their name in different ways. I don't think that the credits in this issue have spelt their names correctly. So Cory Mitchel and William Wilson, Cory with an E and Will as a William, comes up with a few more results. They're credited that they've written a script for an Escape from New York anime film, which never saw fruition. Brandon Jerwa described them as writers from Friends. So you know, I don't see any reason to disbelieve that possibly that's the foot that they got in the door, that they've written for the sitcom Friends, and that carries a bit of a cash with it, and so that got their foot in the door with Devil's Due. And
so Brandon Jerwa says that they were writers on Friends, and I just want to point out I couldn't find their names on the IMDb, and it may be that I wasn't searching hard enough, because there do seem to be different spellings of their names, that what's credited in the comic is incorrect, or maybe they weren't writers, but maybe they were uncredited producers. But I could not, in addition to sort of regular Google, as Mark says, I could not find them on the internet linked to that TV show. So I feel like we're missing a piece of information, sort of the right spelling, or maybe it was a different show, a different TV show that Jerwa was thinking of.
Could be, yeah.
I find it totally fascinating that if that's what it was, or something very similar, a different TV show, I find it totally fascinating that Blaylock asked them to pitch, or they cold called them the way that Jerwa did, or there was some mutual connection, because like that show, or a show like that would be a big deal. And like usually like look at the back cover to issue 16, right? Like it's the ad for the next issue, written by Paul Jenkins, Origin Spider-Man. It's like, that's a big deal. Like, that's a get. Like, oh, this guy wrote that Wolverine story that everyone was freaking out about, and he wrote a bunch of great Spider-Man comics. And here are these two people who seemingly have a connection to something high profile, whatever the TV show might be. And maybe that's like too far afield of G.I. Joe, and a Joe fan's going to be like, well, that's not impressive to me. Why would you promote that? But I feel like that is the kind of thing that Devil's Due would promote. You know, it's like next month's issue of G.I. Joe Frontline, written by so-and-so, or maybe there were some hard feelings if the story got rewritten, or if the story wasn't what the writers thought it would turn out to be, or what Devil's Due thought it was getting into. And this is just conjecture. I have no facts to base this on, but you know, maybe Devil's Due didn't or couldn't sort of promote this issue as coming from these writers based on their other work. Yeah,
it could even be that they're pen names or something like that, and that's why they're so difficult to track down.
Actually, that's and comics has a history of pen names. You know, like many M hands, you know, for inking, like at Marvel in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and in 2000 AD they were like particularly famous for it that because otherwise it would be looking like there's just the same creators are literally writing the entirety of the comics, so they sort of mixed up the names to one, make it look like the sort of the writers were more diverse than they actually were for the readers, but also to slightly pull over the eyes over the wall of some of the powers that be that would be annoyed that one creator was getting so much money for writing the entirety of the comic. But there we go. That's a whole different story. As you say, this was probably a script that had a lot of problems with it, and with Devil's Due not necessarily having a massive kind of editorial department of their own, they asked Brandon to come in and save what he could. But I guess if you're not trying to kind of sort of take it apart and start from scratch, but try and just do a bit of script doctoring of what you can around the basic structure that already exists, you can only get so far. So I think he talked about the fact that they had Snake Eyes talking, which was one thing that he could rescue relatively easily, but sort of the basics of the overall story and the setting and how it all hangs together. You can, I guess, if you're working with a story that has been given to you, you can only do so much without basically rewriting it from scratch entirely. There's a lot that is a bit strange in terms of the story itself and doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense. Like, why is a big chunk of it set in England? There isn't actually really a very good storytelling reason for it to be in England rather than in America, and the fact that it is in England makes less sense because in this universe, I don't think it's been established that G.I. Joe is like an international peacekeeping force with a base in England or anything like that. It's it's still a real American hero. It's a team based in America, largely dealing with American threats from Cobra. And even from an artistic point of view, there's just lots of just things that just don't make an awful lot of sense. There's a lot of playing with the kind of the outline of the page, the sort of the panel structure with lots of curves, and there doesn't necessarily seem to be an obvious storytelling reason for doing that, and it sort of just creates a bit more confusion for me than it.
Barrows did that a lot in the last issue of the history repeating itself arc. There were a lot of pages that had that kind of like a half circle border on either upper half of the page or lower half of the page, and it just confused things. I mean, it doesn't really confuse it, but you look at it, and every time I look at a page with that kind of diagram for the layout, there's just so much wasted space. You've got almost a panel of wasted real estate, and as we've talked about before, real estate on the page is money. There's a lot of different problems with this story in particular, and not even touching. I like the story. I thought the story wasn't bad. As far as how it played out, I'm really tired of the whole Destro versus Cobra Commander thing. I don't know why at this point. There's no reason why Destro, being as smart as he is, hasn't just told Commander to go do something to himself, because you wouldn't put up with this, and it starts clear back in the first issue of Reinstated, Destro's very first scene. Of course, it was Alexander Destro, but it's the same thing. He walks in and he calls Cobra Commander a buffoon, and they're just, it's like, if these guys never get along, then why do they work together all the time? They don't succeed at anything. There's nothing to keep the partnership alive. And here, this whole issue just revolves around Cobra Commander, for some reason, putting a hit out on Destro to test its security. I mean, it's just the plot, the reasons are just dumb.
The story is overloaded, and okay, so,
I know, right?
I'm just gonna
where to start?
It's like, well, there are two coloring mistakes that like made the scene very confusing for me, and then there's some like, I don't know where this person is standing in this room kind of visual storytelling mistake. And there's a like, this line of dialogue feels really out of character mistake. And there's a like So it is hard to know where to start.
I was going to say, like, you just flicking through the book, page one, we're meant to be in London. There's a bunch of soldiers milling about, sort of scratching their heads. Why are they milling about? These kind of complete unprofessional, soldiers. Why are they not in, what nationality are they meant to represent? Because it's clearly not, an English uniform that they've got on. Then you flick the page, and then we've got the Night Creeper scene and the Zartan infiltration scene, and it's very little clarity in the storytelling that's differentiating them apart. Flick the page, you've got a necklace that has been cut. There's a big zoom in on this necklace, so the necklace is clearly a very significant part of the story. Oh no, it's not. It's never been seen before, or since.
Wait. No, that's okay. So, all right. So, very good. Thank you. Okay. So everyone,
is that important?
At the bottom of page 3, there's a knife up against this man's head, his neck, and the man has a mustache. And this is this thing where the story is cutting back and forth within one page, panel to panel, between London and an island in the English Channel. And only the first time that we cut from one to the other is there a caption that says, meanwhile, at the other location. Then the scene just jumps back and forth. Okay, so at the bottom of page 3, there's a knife near this guy, and he has a like dark gray blue necklace. And then you turn the page, and so then Zartan lands in his hotel room. Oh wait, no, that's back at the island on the other location. I don't know. You turn the page, and the Night Creeper is leaning forward and has this dagger or knife against the man's neck, and the man says, "Please, I won't tell, I won't tell." And then it says ka-chink, and so I think the Night Creeper just decapitated this guy, or
kind of
chopped off the necklace, and that's the visual that okay, this guy also is about to get killed, just got killed off panel. We're not going to see it. We're not going to see blood. We're not going to see a silhouetted like head separated from a body. So, in fact, we have Mark seen this necklace before, only 4 panels earlier,
but it was a different color.
Oh well, yeah.
Okay, and then. Let's go back a page, right? So this is back on page 3, right? First panel of page 3.
I wish that I could act surprised. Unfortunately, your presence has become a constant in my life. We had a deal, Commander.
He's saying to Zartan. Because the person he's talking to is colored like Zartan. And Zartan has a brown hair cloak hood thing. And Zartan has like a brown pants and like a brown shirt thing and like silvery shoulder pads. And then the next panel, there's a Night Creeper in this guy's hotel room. That's in the other scene. Yeah. And then in the third panel, if you're all wondering what I meant by in the previous issue, artist Jeremy Love always draws straight on. This is a good example of a really motivated angle up where we need to look past Cobra Commander and Destro to see Zartan coming down. But here, it's like, oh, it was Cobra Commander in the first panel, miscolored as Zartan. And like, you wouldn't think, co-hosts Mark and Jay, and to our tens of thousands of listeners, you wouldn't think that something on the printed page the size of half of my pinky fingernail, miscolored, would like make an entire scene confusing. Here it is.
You wouldn't think that.
And then going ahead a couple pages, there's the scene in Paris where there's some kind of like spy or like bad guy agent exchange. Someone is walking away from the Eiffel Tower, walks past someone on a park bench, puts a Cobra folder into a trash can, and then the guy who's sitting like goes and gets it from the trash can.
And we know that it's like a dead drop type spy situation because we've seen other spy movies where something similar happens.
Right.
They usually don't put their insignia on the envelope.
Otherwise, he might walk away with an empty McDonald's bag or something and come back and it's like, oh, it's just some cold chips.
What the heck?
Ronald McDonald is found dead the next day.
Okay. So these two guys, the first 2 panels where we see the guy walking and the guy sitting.
And we know it's Paris because there's the Eiffel Tower.
In the first 2 panels where we see these 2 guys, the one who's walking and the one who's seated, they're both drawn very far away, very small. And so you have to pay attention to see that like one of them has sideburns and the other I can't tell. But then one of them has glasses on. It's like, okay, it's hard to tell who these two guys are, if it's the same guy, if it's three people. But okay, I figure out from the context that, thank you for that term, Mark, it's a dead drop.
When he's introduced at first, in the one panel, he's got his back to us and he's far away, so we can't see glasses. And then in the next panel, he's in complete silhouette, so we can't see his glasses. And it's only then in a sort of on the following panel that we see this guy in glasses who hasn't been established in the previous panels.
Exactly. And the thing that I was going to also add on top of that is in this first panel on this page where we finally see the guy with the glasses, that's a really big panel. That's 1/4 of the entire page. And that is all to establish this white guy with brown hair and sunglasses.
Who's going to be dead by the end of the issue.
Who we never see again.
Yeah.
And you can sort of see a reflection in his glasses of the other guy walking away. But again, it's a little unclear because I'm gonna just interrupt myself for a moment as an aside. As an aside, everyone, the end of a page and the beginning of the next page is not the only place where you can change scenes, but it is a natural break for a scene change. And so the fact that the second panel of this page is now like the next day, during the day, outside a hotel with the Eiffel Tower to like reestablish this, that's fine. But it's like one more example of how, you know, this space of the story is not being used judiciously. But let me go back to this first panel where this guy with the glasses that are like very shiny and reflective, this guy who doesn't say or think anything. And I appreciate the attempt here that the dead drop is all done wordlessly, right? They don't pull it off, but I appreciate the attempt. At this point, I wish someone had been narrating the scene. It's like, you see, Zartan, one of my Crimson Guardsmen is in Paris right now, and he's going to do a dead drop by the Eiffel Tower, right? Like something.
Some John Byrne dialogue right there.
A lot of space is given to this guy with the shiny glasses. And like, considering he doesn't say or think anything there, considering in this first panel, we don't know where he is. Is he still outside? Is he back into his hotel room? We don't like, it's not like part of the folder is like up into the panel or his hand is holding it. That's a lot of space for a drawing of a guy who, as Mark said, we don't see again after this page. And also, I don't know why this panel is here.
And not on the previous page.
Like the final panel where like we see his hand holding the photo of Destro, that's a big reveal. That panel wants to be big so that Eddy Barrows can draw a big drawing of Destro and the reader can go, oh, Destro's the target, even though you sort of know from the previous panel because you see just enough of his costume, right? But like, you know, big panels are either big because they need to contain a lot of information, because you want to slow down your reader so they like stop and like take it in the way that a long shot in, I mean duration, I don't mean distance. In a film, you like slow down the pace of the edit as opposed to lots of quick shots. Lots of quick shots, the comics equivalent is like lots of small panels. Though it's not, you know, it's not a precise one-to-one relationship. But this is a choice, and I don't think this is the right choice for this scene. And this is like the least of the problems of the issue. This like random guy with shiny glasses is like gets a very big panel. That's too big.
You flick over the page and Baroness is getting a shuriken right in her wrist, right in the back of her hand from Storm Shadow. You know, looks pretty brutal. You know, that's properly embedded in there and drawing blood. Again, as a scene where, you know, into Cobra bickering, it seems
this is taken to the extreme. I mean, when they're hurting each other,
and I can't put my finger quite on it, but it's like that's too much. That wouldn't happen. That isn't the right reactions from any of these characters.
Yeah, because she's pulled a gun.
And again, it's not helped by the storytelling. That awkward layout.
It's sort of like problem on top of problem. Yeah. It's like, well, she wouldn't have pulled it. It's like, oh, he wouldn't have thrown a throwing star at her. Well, she wouldn't have pulled a gun. There's we're gonna get to favorite line, but I'm just gonna jump ahead and do least favorite line because this to me is part of the problem of sort of not having a handle on these characters. Least favorite line. Tim doesn't like it. Someone is talking. Dialogue's clunky. The words are bad. So this page. It's page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start looking up at this building, and Duke is narrating, and he says, no prints, no sign of entry, no suspects. We found bodies in the tool shed. And then someone... okay, you guys see the second panel where there's dialogue that says, whoever did this sure wasn't here for high tea. Okay, is that hand, does that belong to the corpse in the bed in the next panel? Or is that like Lowlight or Stalker... like doing that sort of acting thing where you like put your hand out with your palm up when you're like, what do you mean? Or like, look over there. Or, hey, everyone. That like cliche acting.
That's totally the hand of the dead guy.
I think you're right. That's the dead guy's hand. And the balloon should be pointing at Duke. You're right.
Or
maybe the guy searching should be saying that.
Or the random guy searching. Okay. So we're still not at my least favorite line yet. So, all right. So Duke is saying he found groundskeeper found bodies in the tool shed. Whoever did this sure wasn't here for high tea. And then Stalker steps into the shot. And Duke asks him, digital documents, paper trail? Stalker says, nothing. And then Lowlight says, computers have been wiped clean. And then Duke says, no surprise. Our star victim here was a former member of the Crimson Guard. And then Lowlight says, remind me again why we should give a rip then? Sounds like a Cobra on Cobra crime to me, Duke. Okay, the second half, that's great. It's like, oh, yeah, actually, like, let them shoot themselves up. But like, okay, Lowlight, you cannot care that a Crimson Guardsman has been assassinated by someone, maybe someone in Cobra, but you are staring at, in this very panel, at a dead army guy on the floor that Snake Eyes is like checking out. Like, more than one person died here. Like, that's too callous. I know that Lowlight is a smooth operator and like a cold-blooded killer because he's a sniper, but like, what? No, that's not how a Joe talks.
And also, we find out from the news later on that this guy who died was a Cobra agent who's given himself into security agent, intelligence agents in London. So, and he's obviously sort of turning on Cobra and is going to give in some good intelligence and be given back some witness protection. It's very ineffective witness protection, as it turns out. But this would be a big story. The Joes would, should be all over this and know about it, wouldn't they? It'd be like, why would I care? He's Cobra. But, he's turned on Cobra and he's going to give a bunch of information that's going to help us.
A couple pages later, Duke and Lowlight and Stalker with Snake Eyes are talking to Mainframe and Lifeline on a big computer screen. And Duke says, good idea, Stalker, especially since our satellites picked up something this morning that looks like a Cobra base on an island in the channel. Might be a good field exercise to check out, don't you think? And Stalker's sort of like scratching the back of his head and looking at Snake Eyes. And Stalker says, don't look at me, man. I don't really want to go to France either. What? Why? You don't want to go to France? It's like, what? You're in the army. Like, you guys fly all over the place all the time. You are tough. And like, this is your job. Like, what? Like, no. Let me fix this dialogue for you. Like, don't look at me, man. But I sure can't wait to get some crepes once we get to France. It's like, while we're in France, might as well look up my friend or do some shopping for my wife who I just saw, or like what? Also,
bring something home for Alvin.
And also, depending on where the island is in the channel, it could be in the France side or the English side anyway. They're not being given enough information.
Hey, Mark, are there a lot of islands in the English Channel?
I thought the same thing. I thought we need to ask Mark. That's great, Jay.
Yeah, there isn't. I don't think there's a huge amount of islands in the English channels for us. Like, most of them, like to the south. And
I want to point out one more thing. I don't know if Wilson and Mitchel wrote dialogue for Snake Eyes that got as far as into the script and then sort of like drawn in the script and then lettered. And then Jerwa comes in and is like, oh, wait, we have to take this dialogue out. Please take out this word balloon. Or if like much earlier they turned in a script and Blaylock's like, oh, Jerwa, can you like fix this before it gets drawn or before the rest of it gets drawn? But this same panel, this bottom half of a page where, there's this corpse in the bed, the hand that we just talked about. And Snake Eyes is in the foreground kneeling and looking at this army guy who's dead on the ground. Eddy Barrows does a really nice thing here with Snake Eyes' pose. Snake Eyes is like gingerly investigating the dead guy, and look at what his hand is doing. He's like reaching for something. And I feel like there might have been a word balloon here based on this body language where like Snake Eyes was saying something and they're like, oh, no, take that out.
Something else doesn't make sense about this story is the use of the poison darts. When they find the dead guard in the Parliament building and the dead cobras in Destro's base, they have poison darts behind their ears, but the killer has a sword. He kills the former Crimson Guardsman with a sword. If you were an assassin and you were into killing people with poison darts, wouldn't you save that for your targets?
Yeah, it's his thing. It's his bag, baby. Speaking of the black Geru frogs with the poison toxin darts, the G.I. Joes find out about it. Is it because they're highly trained and they're really expert on sort of deciphering mysteries and doing research and all the rest of it? No, it's because they watched a documentary on the Animal Channel and so happened to have seen it. Oh dear, that's lame.
No way, man. I love the idea that Joes are watching Animal Planet or Discovery Channel. I love that stuff. Some Blue Planet with David Attenborough? Hell yeah.
Just earlier, I was talking about this one panel of one of these two agents during the dead drop at the Eiffel Tower, and how the panel is much bigger than it needs to be, and it doesn't add anything to the story, and it ends up being confusing. And here's another example. Pages 16 and 17. I'm reading the issue, the actual comic book. So 16 and 17 face each other, right? I don't know if in the reprint they're like split on a left side and a right side and then a left side.
Wait, what's on those pages?
16 has 6 small panels on the top and then a big panel of Stalker and Snake Eyes looking at the photo of Destro on the bottom.
The swimsuit calendar panel.
And then page 17 is back in the Cobra base. It has 4 panels and then a very big panel on the bottom with Jay's favorite, Eddy Barrows, drawing an arced panel gutter for some reason of a random Cobra soldier. Okay, this is a really good example. So Eddy Barrows pulls off the storytelling, but there are 7 things that need to be shown here on page 16. Storm Shadow looking at these unconscious or dead cobras, or finding them. Storm Shadow kneeling over to investigate. A close-up of him seeing the dart behind the ear. The Stalker and Snake Eyes crawling away from the exploding hotel room. Then they get up, and for some reason the TV's still on, but okay. Snake Eyes grabs this Cobra folder, and then Stalker opens it, and then we see what's in it, right? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 8 things, right? There are 8 panels. And do you all, I mean, the two of you and anyone listening, do you think that the most important beat here is when Stalker and Snake Eyes are opening a folder that we've already seen opened on a previous page? Like, maybe every panel here wants to... I'm not saying one of the other panels needs to be bigger and this one can be as small. I think maybe all these panels should be equally big, but, they get more space and this panel gets less space. It's not as if there's, a ton of dialogue that Stalker's reciting here and we need a lot of real estate for it. And then similarly on the next page, when I read this page, it's, well composed, but pretty crammed of Destro approaching with his soldiers and Storm Shadow and Cobra Commander on his throne, and we do see past this Cobra soldier or officer in the third panel, which is a nice touch. He is set up before we this very, very conspicuous close-up of him that gets half of a page, but it's oh, is this Scarface or a Fred clone in disguise? Is this this person must be really important? And then it is, because they try to assassinate Cobra Commander, but they're not anyone in particular. And also, I've talked before about
it's the Night Creeper, Tim.
Is it?
It's the Night Creeper assassin. We just that he's dressed up as a Cobra Trooper.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I sort of given up on reading this by that page. Which is why
it's just that without those really characteristic sunglasses, which is the only thing we know about him, it's harder to tell.
But before I talked about how. When the Joes are in their civilian clothes, it's a really funny, it's a really fun nod if if Duke is in just a regular shirt and pants, maybe the shirt can be yellow and maybe the pants can be green. And if Stalker is in civilian clothes, if Stalker's wearing a Hawaiian shirt, that's confusing because Chuckles should wear Hawaiian shirts. Even if in a Joe story, anyone can wear anything, right? I'm not saying that Scarlet is the only person in a G.I. Joe story who should use a miniature crossbow, but it's a little bit of what I'm going to call brand confusion when only one person has ever used a miniature crossbow in G.I. Joe animation and comics. And in a story where I'm already confused, here's someone and I don't know who they are using a mini crossbow. And I didn't think like, wait, is this Scarlet? I did not think that, but I thought, wait, why is this? Why this? It's like, I guess it's because he's like 15 feet away and that's how he's shooting the little darts with the frog poison. Mm-hmm. I can't follow this. And then the next page, who blows up in the fourth panel?
I think it's Nightcrawler from the X-Men. They've just got confused with the name, Night Creeper, Nightcrawler. So they're like those Night Creeper ninjas. They've got a BAMF ability, right?
I almost put in the plot breakdown. Night Creeper teleports.
Is that
crap?
Is that an explosion?
Yes, it is.
Is that an explosion of blood because someone's being like destroyed, but their helmet? Like, is this a joke?
No,
like, their helmet survived.
He's dropped like smoke grenades. He's dropped smoke grenades that go poof, and he's hidden behind the cloud of smoke, and then he reappears and threatens Destro with a sword.
But the smoke explosion is sort of drawn like an incendiary explosion with like yellow and red.
Yeah, it's colored like an explosion, not a smoke bomb.
Sorry, I meant to say colored. Yeah, like even when Destro. Okay, in that second panel, I suggest you take closer stock of all the players. Zartan, what is the meaning of this? And both Cobra Commander has a little surprise thing, and Storm Shadow has a little surprise thing, and Zartan has been posing as Destro in this scene, and Zartan is taking off the Destro helmet to reveal that it's he, Zartan. Is there something funny in the art here? Does it sort of look like something has been like copied and pasted? Like Destro's helmet was drawn separately and like inserted in Photoshop on top of Zartan's head. Like Zartan was holding something else.
Looks a bit wonky,
what?
doesn't it? Mm-hmm.
Like, is that how you take Destro's helmet off with one hand? I could not follow this scene. And then you turn the page and then
it doesn't read well. You're reading it and it's like Destro is talking. The Night Creeper points the crossbow at Destro. Then Destro turns around and points his gun at the Night Creeper. But all of a sudden there's another Destro there and he takes his helmet off and it's Zartan. But where did he come from? We should have seen him like step out from behind a pillar or something. He just appears in that second panel. It's like, oh, there's two Destros. Okay.
And then it happens with the Baroness. You turn the page and I was saying this as a joke like half hour ago when I was as a hypothetical, but here's the Baroness standing in front of a closed door. Did she just come in through that door? If so, maybe the door should be open. If she's been in the room the whole time, maybe there's some indication earlier in the scene that like we actually see her hiding, or if you don't want to reveal it, maybe her pose here should be more like she just jumped out from behind a box as opposed to like sexy comic book woman X-Men Psylocke pose Baroness here. Like, I just fired my gun and I'm sexy, right?
Destro probably has those super fast closing doors like on the Death Star, you know what I mean? Just bam, they're closed.
By this page, I had given up on this comic, and again, I don't want it to seem like I am angry or like I'm not gonna like tear this comic in half. I'm not gonna give it a 10 on my Yo Joeage scale, but I'll go back to like again. I think if you read comics and sometimes you like them and sometimes you don't, and you're not always sure why, I think you should read this comic because this is a really good example of many things not working. But if I was at a store flipping through this, thinking about buying it when it was new, I wouldn't pick up on any of this just from flipping through it. Like, you have to actually read this one to like bump into a wall. If I was flipping through it, it's like, oh, cool, the Night Creepers are here. Like, oh, there's a lot of characters. Like, oh, there's some Joes. Maybe I catch that panel at the end that Jay just referred to. Like, oh, there are a bunch of vehicles. Cool. And again, I'll say this again. I think there is a famous G.I. Joe writer who's written most of the G.I. Joe comics who could and regularly does pull off a story this busy. And I think sometimes we take that for granted because that writer makes this kind of thing look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it is for that writer. Maybe that writer just gets lucky a lot of the time, and these writers didn't. I do think anyone would have a much better time with this story with like fewer elements, right? Too many Joes, too many Cobras, too many non-Joe and Cobras. It's like, oh, and also there's a poison frog. We actually see it. It's like we actually see the poison frog in a glass jar in one panel. I think this is a really good like teaching tool, this comic, of not too many cooks in the kitchen, too many ingredients on the counter.
I feel like this story would have been helped a lot, and Barrows probably would have helped a lot at this stage in his career too, if he would have, in laying out the pages and stuff, tried to use a standard 9-panel grid for each page. If you look, his work inside the panels is all strong. I mean, at least his faces and stuff. But the flow of the story suffers from the overly complicated page layouts. Not just the curved panels, but that's a big problem. But just everything is kind of all over the place. There's too many panels.
If I may take a guess for Jay, I think in referring to a 9-panel grid, you are not suggesting that every page have 9 panels. You're suggesting that every page start with a template of 9 panels that are all the same size. And Barrows, if he needs more space, he like takes 2 of those and combines them, or like 3 of them, or 6 of them.
Yeah, right. Use that grid as his starting point and adapt as needed for the story.
Yeah, I mean, we've not necessarily said it completely out loud, but I think the art generally here is good. You know, it's he did a pretty good job on the history repeating, and for the most part, you know, what he's doing here, it doesn't look like ugly art. You know, it generally, you know, he's doing interesting things and not playing it safe, and the characters are, you know, generally pretty clear when they're colored the right color and that sort of thing. But they, you know, the art generally is pretty good. I'd say the layout is unnecessarily confusing, and the storytelling is confusing, and that'll be mostly driven by the script. I'd say, you know, in terms of cutting in between scenes, you know, that's probably more script and coloring rather than necessarily the choices that Barrows is making in the art.
Those curved borders take up so much real estate on the page. There's so much wasted space in every panel where those curves are used.
Okay, what else have we got? I've got I'd hesitate to say favorite line, but I've got a line, which is Duke sort of responding to the observation that people are being poisoned by frogs, and he says, "Frogs beats the hell out of polar bears, I guess," which is an interesting throwback in terms of we're creating a bit of a you know, a chronology here that we're sort of throwing back to the second arc of the series. And another kind of I Spy is that we got Annihilators here, and it's, you know, good to see some of these lesser known characters crop up. And again, they're drawn as big guys, which is consistent with how they're being shown in the main series when they pop up in the Cabal arc. And I think that's the lot from me. I'm done. I'm spent.
I don't have a favorite line. I have an I Spy.
Go for it.
But it's sort of handed to us on a platter. There's a real life TV news anchor, formerly of Fox, now on CNBC, Shepard Smith, and here he shows up in the Night Creepers hotel room as Shepard. But his face is like copied and pasted like 5 times, which is a thing that either like inkers can do once they've, you know, inked the art and like scanned it, or if they're just drawing natively in Photoshop, or maybe they'll leave a note and the colorist does it. And as a general rule, I don't like it. But it even happens on page 1, where we see those guards that were conspicuous to Mark, and they are copied and pasted in reverse in the Night Creepers visor, which it's like, yeah, that's a shortcut. Don't do that. I have nothing to add.
I actually have a favorite line of dialogue.
Yeah.
Page 4, panel 4, Destro says to Zartan, "Consider yourself lucky, you belligerent swamp rat." Like, that's always going to be Zartan's thing. No matter what kind of power and influence he has, some people are never going to see him as anything other than a swamp rat.
You can take the rat out of the swamp, but you can't take the swamp out of the rat.
I think Destro watched the second animated miniseries just like the rest of us, and he's paying very much attention to Zartan's original vehicle, even if that tracks all the way back to '84.
Okay, let's score this one with our Joe scoring. Okay, so I gave the last one 3.5. Not a great story, not a great score. This has got a more confusing story, but I kind of appreciate the G.I. Joe-ness of it, and I kind of prefer the art style a bit more. But really, kind of on a par. I'll think, to be fair, I'll keep it consistent. I'll go 3.5 on this one as well.
Jay?
My rating, I agree with Mark. I think that this issue is a lot more, we'll say, G.I. Joey than the Stalker issue. So just on that basis alone, it's a little better, or more enjoyable to read. It felt more like a Joe story. It wasn't a very good Joe story. Yeah, I mean, the art is mostly good throughout. Barrows does a lot of nice stuff, especially with the Night Creeper. But the story's just got so many problems. I'm going to give it a 4.
I have read, amateur comics, published by very small black and white publishers from the 80s and more recently, sometimes very small publishers ship free copies to my store with a letter saying, here are some of our comics. Please order some if you like them and think you can sell them. And they're not always good. There are publishers, like less well-known, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, IDW, Dark Horse. There's like a tier below them in terms of like how much money they make and how much they publish. And there's a tier below them. And then it's just sort of like one or two people on their own. And there are some inept and ugly amateurish things out there. And those would get a 0 or a 1. And Mark makes a good point that there's still a lot of G.I. Joe-ness to this story. But this is an inept comic book. This is a 2. But as a teaching tool, I'm glad I have it.
There we go. Excellent. So last time we talked, we had got to the end of innuendo. I used up all of my innuendos. So that was put out for retirement. But I do have a new feature. This feature is called Squiduendo. This is a very sort of timely cash-in on the nowness of of the word squid. G.I. Joe Cobra General Knowledge. So, it's the Squiduendo game. We'll turn on the red lights and the green lights and see how Jay and Tim get on. Today's Squiduendo game is all about the G.I. Joe character Squidmark. So this is kind of based on your knowledge of that character, who might also be known as Skidmark, but for the purpose of this, sounds like Squidmark. So, are you ready for some questions about Skidmark?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Let's alternate. So, Tim, what color? And Jay, you can I think maybe you can if the first answer doesn't get it right, you can chip in and play your squid card and see if you can steal a point. Okay, so Tim, what color are Skidmark's pants around his waist section?
Green.
Green light.
Yeah, a kind of olive green. Green light. Okay, Jay, Skidmark is the Desert Fox driver released in 1988. But what is the Walmart price sticker on the box used in the scan on 3D Joe's?
What year was that?
1988. I'll give you a plus or minus $2.
Let's see. $12.95.
Red light.
Oof, you're off. It was Tim, let's see if you can steal this one. Because it's Jay's question, I'm going to shrink down the size of the boundary. $1, Tim.
15.
No, you're even farther away. It was $7.76.
Oh my God.
In Walmart in 1988.
I just saw an old Star Wars ad on Facebook, and the Rancor monster was like $12.97 or something. And someone said, that was only $12.97. Why didn't I have that?
Okay, Tim. So the Desert Fox has a subtitle on the box in big letters underneath where it says Desert Fox. But what do those letters say?
Isn't it 4WD? 4-wheel drive?
Red light.
Oh, so close, so close.
Oh, 6-wheel drive.
6WD. 6-wheel drive, absolutely. So I'm going to have to take your first answer on that one then, Tim, even though clearly you did know what the right answer should have been. Jay, how many Joes does the box say that the Desert Fox has room for? So it says room for X Joes. What is that X?
12.
Red light.
No, not even close. Tim, I'll let you steal, but you have to get it exact.
6.
6. It was 6 Joes.
Green light.
Jay, did you not have the Desert Fox?
No, I never had that one. I think it came out probably a year or two after I got out of the hobby. It's big, isn't it? I was trying to picture it. All I could think was like 3 Joes on either side and 3 in the back. It's the one based off the Humvee, right?
Oh, the hammer? The hammer?
Yep.
Yeah, the Desert Fox is more like the size of the...
Like the All-Striker?
No, it's more like the size of the Snowcat.
Oh, well, that's bigger than the All-Striker.
But not as big as the hammer.
Okay, and final question from Squidmark's file card. It concludes, the worst thing that his teammates can say about him is... ... I'll give you both the chance at this one. What do his teammates say about him? I'll give it to the person that either gets it exactly right or makes me laugh the loudest. So the worst thing that Squidmark's teammates can say about him is...
I'm gonna play it straight and not try and make anyone laugh. His terrible jokes, his bad sense of humor.
Red light.
It's not that.
He smells.
Yeah, Larry does like to describe people as smelling. It seems like a disproportionate amount on the file cards, but I don't think in this case. Sorry, was that your?
Yeah, he smells.
The worst thing that his teammates can say about him is he smells. So the actual answer is, of course, the worst thing about him that his teammates can say is he has poop-stained trousers and that he should change them. No. It is actually... he does his job, is what they say.
It's like those schools you see with the banner in the front yard that says, this school is rated adequate.
He is competent. He has a good attendance record.
That smacks to me of the person writing the file card sort of going like, oh man, I got to write 30 of these this year. And like, all these guys are like the best of the best. How do I make them really interesting? It's like, well, that guy smells, and that guy's got a bad sense of humor. No one liked this guy's music. This guy's like a chef. This guy, he does his job.
He's there. So tune in next time for more not Squid Games. No, it's not that. It's Squiduendo. And if you or anyone else listening can come up with any further squid-related puns relating to G.I. Joe, please let me know, and then I can try and rinse this for more than 2 weeks.
Oh, there's all kinds of squid-related characters you can quiz us on. Shipwreck, wetsuit,
squid adjacent characters,
torpedo, eels,
Hydro Viper.
Hell yeah, Hydro Viper's awesome.
So next up, we've got the return of a segment that we've not seen for a little while. G.I.J. sent me in the post the Baroness classified figure with the coil motorbike, and we thought, what better use than for us to open that with Thomas and have him say what he thinks. So here is the long-awaited return of Thomas Talks Toys.
Kids with toys. Kids with toys. Kids with toys.
Family.
Kids with
My
toys.
Little Pony.
Kids with toys.
Star Wars.
Kids with toys.
Transformers.
Kids with toys.
Lego.
Kids with toys.
G.I. Joe.
Yo, Joe!
It's me, Mark. And who's with me today? Today, Thomas, we're going to be doing an unboxing. What's it going to be?
It's gonna be the Baroness.
Baroness. G.I. Joe Classified with Cobra Coil. Very kindly donated by the folks at J. Cordray Industries. Thanks, Jay. So let's get into it. And let's see what we got. Okay. So what we got in the box? What's in the box?
We've
We've
got
got
the
the Cobra
Baroness.
Coil bike.
Two real, like, futuristic-looking guns.
Like a handlebar thing.
A snake gun thingy-majig. A cobra knife.
Helmet head.
Yeah. And...
A figure and 2 pistols.
But, like, they've been making so many golden guns. What's that thing with the golden guns? Like, Destro, now Baroness?
There it is. Handle is in. That thing was tough as anything. Whew. Right, that's that one in. What's next?
Honestly, we should have just started with the figure. Like, it's the figure.
Go figure. Okay, so put it down there. You can see the back holster.
Quite fancy schmancy.
And there she is with the gun.
Hands up.
Hands up. And those big guns can click on the side of vehicle like that, or into
Her hand.
her hand. Let's get that head on.
That looks like some kind of sassy ninja thing.
Does look a bit ninja-y.
Your hands in the air.
Get your legs in the air. What? Design feature. Okay, let's go through the various bits of this toy, Thomas. So, first up, let's start figure. So, what do you think of the figure?
Quite nice and detailed.
Nice. It's quite a sort of faithful to the original design, isn't it? You look at her and you do think Baroness. What do you think about the different bits? So the accessories, we've got those dual pistols that can go in her back holsters.
I like dualies, so
We've
I'd
got
say,
yeah.
yeah.
got
I'd
the-
say those
where
are
is
10
that?
out of 10.
10 out of 10 on the guns. Okay, the Cobra dagger that goes on her thigh.
8-ish.
Nice touch. We've got some sort of very glassy looking glasses.
I'd say they're hard to do, so
Hard to do.
9.
Yeah, nice effect. And what do you think of the ninja-y helmet? Do you think?
11 out of 10.
Oh, you're into the helmet, are you?
I like it.
Do you think that will get played with? Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the bike itself, it's pretty cool, pretty Akira-ishy. It's got these detachable guns on the side. What do you think? Into the bike.
Tricky.
It's your first G.I. Joe classified vehicle.
Mm.
It's got quite the tires feel a bit rubber.
Wait, do the tires move?
Tires move.
Okay, then this is a good one. 10 out of 10.
Okay, 10 out of 10. So,
Honestly, if I was picking favourites, I'd choose the helmet.
okay, their favourite bit might be the helmet. Interesting. Okay, so that is...
Wait, when it's popped.
So that was G.I. Joe Baroness with the Cobra Coil, Cobra Island Special Missions box. Thumbs up. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you. Wait, I gotta do it so it's like
Peace out.
it's a.
So there we go. Thomas with the Baroness. Thank you, Jay, for supplying that.
What did you think of the Baroness figure herself, Mark?
Yeah, it's a good figure, I think. Yeah, I like the way that they've done her sort of dual wielding pistols and that kind of thing.
My only complaint is, and maybe this is because of the way the figure is designed to sit on the bike, her legs seem kind of bent. Like when you try to stand her up, she doesn't stand up straight real well. She looks kind of bow-legged.
Bow-legged.
Otherwise, I think it's a great figure. Probably the best Baroness figure we've ever gotten.
Very good. Excellent. So I think that is us done this week. Next time on Talking Joe Disavowed, we will be seeing off the Frontline run by looking at the two concluding parts, issue 17 and issue 18. Again, they're one and dones. One is about Beachhead and one is about Roadblock. And I think I'm confident in saying we will probably rate those better than the two this week. Nostradamus powers. And then, of course, come back for all of the other good stuff. We're continuing to cover the issues of A Real American Hero as it comes out, as written by Larry Hama. Yeah, we've seen continuing one-off spotlight issues. So looking forward to exploring those. Where can people find you guys? Tim, where can people find you?
ARealAmericanBook.com and also my comic book store, Hub Comics, in Somerville, Massachusetts, which is right next to Boston and Cambridge.
Excellent. Any progress with your book over these last few months?
No, I know I told you a year ago in our interview before I became co-host that it was going to be a great time. But it's actually been a hard time.
Uh-huh.
Lots of stuff going on outside. Much of it good, like the store. If all of you listeners enjoyed the three of us talking about the Snake Eyes movie that was released this summer, you may be interested in reading 3,500 words written by just me, which I posted recently on my blog.
Yeah.
Jay, where can people find you?
Cut out the deadwood and just read Tim's thoughts instead. So, Jay.
Now, all kidding aside, I did read that article, Tim. That was very good. Definitely recommend all our listeners check it out.
Thanks.
I like the bit at the end of the article where you linked to us. That was my favorite bit.
I was impressed with how thoughtful each of you were about the movie. So I wanted to send my tens of thousands of readers your way, our way, back to the podcast.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, very well written as always. Yeah, if you just listen to this and you haven't visited Tim's website, please do go over and check it out. I'm sure you'll get lost in it and spend hours quite easily sort of delving through the archives over there. And if you enjoyed listening to us, you can find out more over on the website. The website name is talkingjoe.co.uk, and that has got links to all of the other places you can find us. So the Facebook group, so come on over there and get involved in the discussion. Leave your thoughts on the latest episode. We're on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on YouTube. So each of the episodes is released as an episode with additional video content cut in. So if you enjoy the YouTube episodes as well, like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It's nice to know that people are watching and enjoying it, ideally as well. So please do that. And we'll also give a shout out to the people that take part in our Patreon. The Patreon can be found at patreon.com/talkingjoe. A big thanks to our backers, Richard, Sam, Jay, Bill, Christopher, and Justin, who are taking part in that. There's no minimum donation, so don't feel that you would have to break the bank to take part in that. All of those guys are getting early access to episodes, as well as some exclusive content. So...
sometimes like 3 weeks in advance.
Yeah, we've even had 3 episodes up there that haven't been revealed to the public as yet. We've also got all sorts of extra content for like the sketchbook shows and stuff like that, so you can see all of the images that we're looking at. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to explore, some of which is unlocked and available to everybody. So do head on over to patreon.com/talkingjoe and have a look. Even if you're not subscribed, you can probably find a few things of interest over there. But I think that is us done. But remember,
Nobody beats Talking Joe!
A real American podcast!
with also a guy from England who sounds a little bunged up. Anyway, later guys.